Ian, just wave to me and say I'm ready whenever you're ready.
Okay, I will cut to you.
Okay, welcome everyone to the August Board of Supervisors business meeting. Oh, goodness. I want to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started, I do want to apologize for the delay in the meeting. We were having some technical issues, and I think they seem to have been all resolved. Yes, thank you. I'm going to do that right now. Like, what is this? All right. So we did have an executive session on July 20th for personnel issues. We also had an executive session on July 26th regarding land acquisition. And this evening, before our meeting where we discussed personnel, land acquisition, and litigation, and we are going to continue our executive session after our meeting this evening. So, thank you.
Martha, this is Madeline.
Yes, Madeline.
Before you continue, may I just remind everyone to speak directly into their microphones?
Can you hear me okay, Madeline?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. And you guys know I have a pretty big mouth, and this is how close the microphone is. So if you guys need to speak, I think you need to get it a lot closer than what you guys have. And if any of you guys here in the public, we need you to speak so that people can hear you online. We're going to ask you to come up to the microphone here, introduce yourself and your address, but you've got to get really, really close to the microphone here. Okay. Consent agenda. The acceptance of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors July 7th, 2020 business meeting. There was no work session held in July. The acceptance of reports, all departmental, committee, commission, and council reports as posted and received by the Board of Supervisors for the month of July 2021. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And quick note, you said 2020 in the first one. I think we just need a quick
July, okay.
verbal amendment.
July 7th, 2021.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Sorry.
Trying to go back in time here. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Okay, so there's been a motion and there's been a second. Is there any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Bob, we didn't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. The Treasurer's Report and payment of bills for the period ending July 31st, 2021. The consideration of acceptance of the Treasurer's Report and approval to pay the bills. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions? I'm going to turn it over to EJ.
Yeah, I'll give a brief treasurer's report. As of July 31st, the general fund balance was $4,544,122, a decrease of about $154,000 from the previous month, but an increase of about $320,000 from the same point last year. I did want to report that we did receive our first tranche of the American Rescue Plan funding shortly after last month's board meeting. We set up a new bank account for that. By the time the deposit went through and everything went through, we didn't have time to update the treasurer's report to reflect the new account, but by next month the treasurer's report will be updated to show that as a separate account. That was about $450,000, and we anticipate anticipate getting the second half of that next year. The only other thing to report, through the end of July, we've received about 83% of our budgeted revenues, and we've spent about 46% of our budgeted expenditures out of the general fund. And I've reviewed the bills and would recommend payment. Everything is in order.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for EJ? Any public comment or questions? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I did hear both of them that time. Thanks, guys. Okay. 2-minute reports, board liaisons.
Yeah, I'll go
Mark,
first.
do you have anything?
Yeah, I got a quick one. The Regional Planning Committee.
Closer to the microphone, sorry.
The Regional Planning Committee is looking for a couple appointments to represent Schuylkill on the Regional Trail Committee. I think they're dealing specifically with the Devault Trail. I think Bob had mentioned he was interested in that a few months ago, but,
I think Susan,
and was it,
weren't you attending those meetings?
The DeWalt Trail, yes,
Yeah.
but there really hasn't been much.
yeah, Rusty from East Pikeland is forming a regional trail committee to represent the region, and they're looking for a few members from Schuylkill and maybe a representative from like a nonprofit or a business in the area that could weigh in on trail plans for the Devault Trail. It may expand into a larger trail network discussion, but at this time it's limited to the Devault Trail, so anything in that area.
Well, just,
And it can be commission members, it can
okay.
be
I was just gonna
board
say, just to
members.
let you know that, our Environmental Advisory Council has a subcommittee of a
Yeah.
trail, and they just met on Monday, so,
Yeah.
and
So maybe
Susan.
like one member of the EAC or Susan or Bob. I think like Susan and Bob maybe if you're interested.
I'm already attending their meetings
Yeah,
as our liaison from this board.
yeah.
Um,
So
so,
whoever.
okay. Maybe I could talk to our trail committee and see if someone wants to like alternate with me or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to speak into the microphone.
Or maybe I could, yeah. I could see if someone from our EAC trail committee wants to alternate with me.
Okay.
I don't think a lot is going on right now with
Yeah,
that,
this-
so I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're trying to start up the discussions on it.
Oh, it's
so-
being discussed. I just think there's not really funding and
Yeah,
a
no,
commitment
they're
to.
trying to identify funding, identify interest, identify all of these things, trying to see if there are grants available. So this is the start of a larger discussion, and there's like an initial meeting that they're trying to set up, so it'll depend on who's available.
Well, let me just say, why don't I put them in touch with the person who's already doing this, because
That'd be fine.
they have a lot of people already working on this, so I'm not sure why the region is jumping into it, but there's already like 12 people who meet every
Yeah.
month on this. So I don't know why
I
the
think it's
region,
I think it's, that group is looking for more people to start bringing input.
huh, they have not mentioned that yet, but maybe.
Yeah, I'll put
Okay.
I'll put whoever it is in contact with Rusty.
Okay.
That should do it.
Okay. Susan, do you have any 2-minute reports?
I do not. Thank you.
Bob, do you have any 2-minute reports?
I do. We've got a couple new members joining the Historical Commission. We're happy about John Jarboe and Randall Wagner. So we'll be up to a full 9 folks on that commission with 2 alternates now. Also interested, Peter Levin and Sarah Geis. So we're growing that commission with some additional horsepower, which is really nice. Looking at Founder's Day, trying to fine tune that date. So stay tuned for that. Looks like it was going to be targeted for November 6th. We'll know more. May move to the middle of the week, so stay tuned for that. I've got some work being completed on the trolley station that regarding the sashes, windows, and some glazing, and that's coming together this year. And last but not least, there's a second workshop coming up there. Looks like September 1st, I believe it's going to be, to discuss interpretive displays. We'll see how that goes. So we're not having a meeting this month, but next month we'll meet and talk more about that.
Okay,
That's it.
great. Thank you, Bob. EJ,
I have-
before you get started.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just make one comment before I turn this over to EJ. All our township boards, committees, and commissions have resumed in-person meetings at the Township Hall. At this time, masks are not required, but are strongly encouraged for anyone who is not vaccinated. So I just wanted to make that announcement to anyone who is here. So, go ahead.
I have two-minute reports. One is regarding the Route 23 sidewalk project. Just a quick update for the board. We've completed putting together a project, kind of like a one-pager project summary with some additional exhibits and actual like before and after exhibits of the 5 remaining properties that we still need consent letters from. So those were all put in the Dropbox just for additional supplements. So currently we're in touch with Representative Melissa Schusterman's office to get some dates that we can actually schedule meetings with these property owners, go over some of the exhibits, and I'll be in touch with the board once we have a few dates from which to choose. We're looking at September after Labor Day, you and Mark, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, Mark and I said that we would be part of that as well.
And the second 2-minute report I have, this is something that was kind of brought to the town board's attention a long time ago, and there hasn't been much update on it, but the Freedoms Foundation is moving forward with replacing their sewer facility on site. This is not something that's going to come before the board as a land development. It's just going through our building and zoning department and engineering review for stormwater grading, stormwater management and grading approval. But other than that, they've gotten all of their approvals from DEP, Conservation District, the Valley Forge Sewer Authority. But we haven't had an update on that for a while, so I want everyone to be aware that it's going to remain a private system, but it is going to it's going to connect into the public sewer system a little further down on Route 23. But the entire system is still going to be owned and maintained by the property owner, which is currently the Freedoms Foundation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Okay, thank you, EJ. Board discussion items, old business, discussion, the public meeting protocols, and municipal building status. Well, I kind of gave half of that, and I think, did you want to talk about the building status during the day?
Yeah, so, I mean, the only thing I would really add with regard to the masks is I think everyone's probably aware that the CDC did come out with some updated guidance or recommendations last week, which was a significant change. Basically, they are recommending for all areas that have substantial or high transmission rates, they are recommending indoor masking regardless of vaccination status. Currently, Chester County is not falling into that category. Montgomery County is, Delaware County, I believe, is, and Bucks County are all in the either high or substantial as of yesterday. Chester County is not. The Chester County Health Department has announced that they intend to follow the CDC recommendations if and when Chester County enters into one of those categories. And for the better part of the last year and a half, we've been following the county guidance from the health department, following their lead on this. So in the event that Chester County transmission rates continue to increase and put us into one of those categories, I would look to re-implement a mask mandate for township operations, and then that would impact public meetings as well.
Okay.
That's it.
Does anyone have any comments on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Discussion, Paul Lemon Drive Stormwater Management Projects, the design, estimate, and grants. Our township engineer, Russ, I'm putting you on the spot, but before you get started, before you get started, I have to say that what you've come up with, EJ sent this to us last week. This is great. This really is great.
Good.
So I am going to tell you to move that microphone a little
Yeah.
closer. So thank you.
Can I go portable with this, and then can we pull that up on the screen, and I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
Mhm.
use that then? That would be good.
Yeah. Madeline, I think will pull up the exhibit on the screen. while Russ is going up there, I'll give a quick update on the grants. We've been keeping an eye on the two main potential grant programs if we were to get additional state funding, are the PA Small Water and Sewer, which is the grant program that we already have a $350,000 grant towards this project from, and then the H2O grant, which is a very similar project but for bigger, more expensive
Is
projects.
that the one I found?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
one you found. Neither of those have reopened yet.
Okay.
And I think it's only a matter of time until they do, but there's been no indication in terms of a timeline of when they might reopen.
What is the state's fiscal year start? Is it calendar year?
Or is it October?
No, it's,
I think
it says July?
I think it's July.
Yeah, it's July.
I think it's July
Yeah,
1.
it's July to July.
That's what we were expecting, that if it was gonna reopen this year, we would have known last month. And
Oh.
some of the other grants that are funded through the CF, the Commonwealth Financing Authority, which funds a lot of the grants, a lot of them did reopen last month, once the new budget was passed.
Okay.
These two grants that we want and need were not reopened.
Would having a conversation with Melissa Schusterman or any of her staff
Wouldn't hurt.
help?
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
Okay. Do you want to do it? Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be in touch with her
Okay.
about the sidewalk project anyways.
Okay. All right. Okay, Russ, take it over.
EJ, do you want to put that plan up?
Madeline.
It's not that I don't mind watching Bob and Tim, but I do need a
Madeline,
plan
do
in
you
front of
have
me.
the Paul Lehman plans that you can share on the screen? If not, I can pull them up in just a second. We lost your
We call that an
screen share went
upgrade.
away. Madeline's still there.
Sorry, folks, we're having some technical difficulties again.
Let's see.
I am here, EJ.
Yes.
I'm trying to find the updated plans that came today. I'm sorry, but I can't locate them, it appears.
I'll re-email them to you right now.
I have them. I just found them. My apologies.
No problem.
May have to pull the board out.
I think they're all in front of you as well.
Yep,
Yeah.
we have them on paper here.
Um,
Yeah.
You okay, Madeline?
Getting there.
While that's being pulled up, just maybe a little bit of background. I mean, obviously, the original plan, there was a concept plan that was prepared for the grant, and like many concept plans that are prepared for grants, you try your best to do the layout, to try to identify cost items, and as a result of that, put the plan together, do a quick cost estimate, and then submit your grant, and keep your fingers crossed when, if the grant's awarded, that obviously your pricing is appropriate as you go to final design. Now, we've really just have gone to what I won't call it a final design, obviously, but a preliminary design, and a design that's in depth to the point where it identifies a lot of what I'll call significant cost items. We've overall, for the design, we've added more inlets than the original concept plan. We've shown additional items like things like guide rail, a significant improvement to culverts. So we've done a lot of detailed work, and I'll explain the concepts.
But as that has evolved, the price has risen. And then not only that, I think this grant application was done, what, 2 or 3 years ago, EJ?
Fall of 2019, yes.
Yeah, so,
About 2 years ago.
yeah, 2 years ago. So, and then, obviously pricing in the construction field has been extremely dynamic, is the best way I can describe it, since COVID has hit. And as a result, a lot of the pricing has gone up. So with that, now that we have the plans, I will just do a little bit, I'll do an explanation of plans. And we have 2 alternates to present to the board tonight. And I'll go over what I refer to as the base alternate, and this is the total project. As we're looking at the screen, that would be the drawing on the left side of the screen. And essentially, this is the project and the scope of the project that was taken into consideration when the original application was done. We have had site meetings. At the site, we've walked it. Tim and Bob were present during those particular site walks. EJ also. And we're certainly familiar with the conditions that are out on Paul Lehman Drive, as well as North Forge Mountain Drive and the conditions that contribute down to that. Starting at North Forge Mountain Drive, there is an existing inlet system. It's minor in nature that picks up water that contributes down to. I'll just reference it as the drive. It's a lot easier to say than all 3 words. But there's a significant amount of water that contributes down to that. And then subsequently, anything that's not caught, it runs down Paul Lehman Drive. After talking with our designers, Nick, the Public Works Director, we decided we would make a significant improvement to the inlet that's at the top of Paul Lehman Drive, and to pick up water more efficiently and put it into the proposed storm drainage system, as well as looking that if there in the future that we can add additional stormwater systems and improve those systems in the drive. We put 2 stub pipes that we can tie into. So it kind of builds in a phasing aspect to the project as it relates to North Mountain Forge Drive. So what we will be doing is then improving that existing pipe that's in there now. I think it's an 18-inch corrugated metal pipe, and this once again is the base. We'd be improving that and replacing it with larger size pipes, more inlets as we go down. And I think the real significant aspect of this, and you can see that as the pipe traverses down, if you go down and you're familiar with that area, as you go down Paul Lehman Drive on your left, probably like 400 or 500 feet down, there's a significant gully that's been really created as a result of stormwater coming out of that system and discharging into that gully. The day we were down there, it's a fairly significant area. It has a lot of erosion. You can see that it's even when we were down there, some of the erosion looked fairly fresh and fairly significant. So one of the aspects here, we're going to then essentially cut that water off, and we're going to have that water that comes down, and instead of discharging into that swale, we're going to pick that water up and have it continue down Paul Lehman Drive. So that aspect of that gully, which I'll call a gully or a ditch, significant ditch, the water will be cut off from that, and the erosion will not be, the downstream property owners will not be seeing that stormwater that they've had for a long time. We'll continue down. There is another secondary, a smaller pipe that also discharges probably another 200 feet down Paul Lehman Drive. We'll also be picking that pipe up, and once again, taking that down Paul Lehman Drive all the way down to where that existing culvert crosses Paul Lehman Drive. And that's the downstream culvert is where that ditch that I talked about previously, all the water comes down through those properties and then eventually discharges to this culvert. And even that culvert, there's significant erosion upstream, downstream from that particular culvert. We'll be upsizing that culvert to a 48-inch pipe. There will be significant erosion protection on the upstream side, the downstream side. It'll even include placement of a gabion wall that'll allow the water to drop rather than erode and take the rocks with it. On the upstream side, downstream side, we'll have like a concrete apron with pretty significant, I mean, for lack of a better term, almost like if you looked at a concrete pad and you imagine cinder blocks being in that in a kind of an offset pattern. That'll be downstream. And the purpose of that is it provides for a significant, de-energization of the water as it's discharged from that culvert. And also we'll be providing like a stilling pool type of facility down there to kind of slow the water down. If you had, some people would look at this and have some concerns that obviously we're putting in a pipe system rather than having this natural gully that goes down there now. But one of the things that I think it's interesting to see as far as how the water will be affected, the rate of water is obviously affected by the length of the path. If you have a shorter path, you can discharge more water through it. You can see as we put this pipe system in, it's going to be a significant length of pipe that's added and a length the water travels as far as this particular drainage area. That, in a nutshell, is what we call the base or the total project, of which the original grant application was based on. Now, what we have done is we've looked at also providing an alternate where we're able to save about $125,000 in the overall cost of the system. And simply what we're doing there is we would start this project where that pipe, the existing pipe that runs down Paul Lehman Drive, discharges into that large gully or ditch. So we would start the project there, and then once again, it would be the same system that would be constructed as we go down Paul Lehman Drive. And then essentially, if there was an alternative where we could come in later and then build the rest of the system, we could do that. That said, though, the one area we would still affect an improvement to would be that inlet at the top of Paul Lehman Drive on the drive location. And that inlet would be improved to still take the water off of North Forge Mountain Drive and take it into that inlet system. So we would have that improvement. We just wouldn't put a new pipe in, and that could possibly be a future phase. Now, talking about cost, as I mentioned before, a significant amount of additional work identified a significant amount of additional cost items over and above that which was considered as part of the grant. And right now, what I'll call the base system is at $1,115,000 as far as our estimate goes. And I think you all got copies of that estimate. You can see the detail of the estimate. And the other thing too that I think is important as far as the restoration of the roadway goes too, I think in the original concept it was considered they would just restore the trench, and that's all, so you can imagine it's just trench restoration. We're at, especially in this significant curve in the roadway, that will be the full width of road will receive an overlay once it's done. And then for the rest of the area, it'll be a half width overlay. So we feel you'll have a significant improvement also to the surface of Paul Lehman Drive as a result, because this will be a major impact on that road when the construction's being done. And then, as I said, what we wanted to do is we wanted to present an alternative to the board where we could realize some cost savings. And once again, that's in the alternate design where we're eliminating that, it's like 200 or 300 feet again of pipe run to result in that $125,000 savings.
Russ, could you tell me a little bit about the pros and cons of that difference? Is that a really problematic area where we're really losing something by not doing that section, or?
I think it's interesting. It's a good question, and we looked at it initially. Initially, when we looked at this project, and I think the reason for the grant was, and it certainly still is to a degree, is to control a lot of that water that comes off of North Mountain Forge Drive. And what we saw, though, is when we looked at it, and when Tim and Bob and I were out there with EJ too, is that that gully is really a significant problem. I mean, that's a significant area that's receiving erosion. We're concerned about it. And we wanted to make sure that, at least as an alternative and maybe a phase, that work gets done initially with some improvement to the drainage up at the top of Paul Lehman Drive. But we think we wanted to offer an alternative. We want to make sure that work from the gully down would be an option to present you to be done first, and then we'd be able to get up there and do the rest of the work at the top of the road.
Is any part of what we're not going to be doing covered, would it be covered by the grant? Like, should we try to do it now because it would be covered by partial grant funds, or not really?
Well, I think we've had I know we've had conversations with DEP saying that, listen, and once again, this is not an unusual occurrence. If you go out to bid and the bid is significantly higher, one of the things can we supplement with other grants? Yes, you can do that. And at the same time, too, if you want to work within those parameters, you know, there are ways, and I think there's an option now that was presented where if just the culvert area gets done down below. And once again, that's another one of the areas. Maybe it's not a major area, but it is having erosion. It's having issues. You know, every time it rains, we've had some over the years. You've experienced, Township experienced some overtopping of the road at that location. There's been continued erosion from up above, so we can improve that situation too as a possible alternative.
And we've spent a lot of money sending Nick out there with large boulders.
Closer to the mic.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's something you're going to continue to do. And
So this solution solves at least that, correct? On that lower end.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. There are alternatives here to break this project into phases, that each one of those phases would address a particular problem. A, the culvert and the overtopping of that culvert. B, the erosion in the gully. C, the storm drainage that's occurring and it's not being picked up at the top of Paul Lehman Drive, and is kind of coming down there, down Paul Lehman Drive uncontrolled.
So the pipe that, on the example on the right, the pipe that would not be laid, that would save $125,000, is that a capacity issue, like from the top there on North Forge Mountain? Would that address a capacity issue for the drainage on North Forge Mountain, or is it like a separate, just...
The interesting thing about these pipes that are in there now, because of the grade they're set on, you know the grade of Paul Lehman Drive, it's very steep. The pipes themselves have a lot of capacity to carry water. They're somewhat limited, though, by the ability of the inlets to direct water into the pipes. So as part of this project, for the total project, we would be improving the capacity of that pipe. Okay, but once again, the issue we feel there that's important is we really have to look at that inlet at the top, get that more efficient, and get more water into the pipe to kind of use the existing capacity we have there, and then possibly at a future time, if that's the way the board would want to go, we can even improve the capacity of that, and then we can even go up on either side of Paul Lehman Drive and improve the capacity of those inlet systems too.
Great. That answers the question. Thanks.
So the question I have is, first of all, this looks great. I like the phased approach. Everything looks good with that. So we have a storm, we have a lot of water, this has all been built, everything's great. What happens to the water when it gets down here?
Yeah, and that's a good point too. You know, it's stormwater over the years, all the years I've been doing stormwater projects, it's you continue just to chase the problem downhill is what you do. You start and the problem then, you know, you continue to do it. What you try to do, and what I think we've done in this design is we try to minimize the impacts of improvements in the amount of water as it relates to when it discharges from that in culvert. We want to try to not worsen that condition. So our goal is not to worsen the condition. Will the downstream residents say, oh, we've seen a big improvement, there's not much water coming down to us now? No, they won't say that. Our goal is, though, to say it's not any worse than it used to be. But even that is a difficult statement. I mean, you've seen in the last 3 weeks, if you follow the news, you know, Ben Salem Township, you know, areas got 8 to 10 inches of rain in a 4-hour period. That's traumatic. An event like that can happen. And the first response that I've heard from people over the years is, we never had that until, you know, you put the storm system in, and then we got 10 inches of rain, and we never. Well, it's kind of, you know, it's relative, and you have to keep that in mind, that we continue to have these unusual stormwater events. Every township experiences them. You will experience one again, probably shortly, you know, in the next few years. So it's something you have to plan for. And once again, as we look at these designs, we try to make them as resilient as possible so that they can take events like that and, you know, take the water away, be efficient in taking the water away. We see a lot of times when we have these events, if the storm systems are outdated, they're clogged, they're not maintained, there's debris clogging, there's a lot of issues like that. And once again, what we try to do is we try to build some resiliency into these systems, knowing that you know, the pipe to control what happened 2 weeks ago would have been taken up the entire width and 10 feet deep in Paul Lehman Drive, and that's not feasible. So what we try to do is work with what we have. And I believe this system here is sized like on a 25-year storm is what we've looked at.
Okay.
So it will help the people upstream, though? It will help the people at the top of the mountain?
It will. It'll actually, to me, the biggest help here will be this gully that occurs from halfway down to that culvert. That will be a major improvement once this system is done.
But basic,
And Susan,
I mean,
there are
I think it has
houses
to be.
right below, sorry, Paul, there
Go
are
ahead.
houses below that gully. You don't see them there. But there are houses that could be in danger with the way this gully is, the amount of water it's taking and the direction that it's heading and the erosion that's taking place. So there are some houses right below that are of concern, or at least of note, I think.
Yeah, the sizes of the trees falling into that gully, it's something to behold. You got some 30-inch plus diameter trees that are being uprooted and falling into this gorge.
And that was obvious to when we were out there that day. You know, as soon as we saw that, I think we all reached the conclusion almost at the same time that we have to do something to fix this. And quite frankly, it's not the question of, it's just taking that stormwater away from that gully. That's kind of became the focus of the project. And once again, not that it's not important, but as opposed to taking all the drainage from the top of Paul Lehman Drive and North Forge Mountain Drive.
And I think slowing it down once it hits the bottom of this proposed system is another benefit that we were talking about, because it currently just goes down the gully, crosses the road, and it's still picking up speed as it goes down. But this kind of lets it settle at least halfway down the hill, and people below aren't going to have as much erosion.
And Mark, I think that's a good point too in the design. One of the things we did in the last few structures, we step this down. So if the construction goes forward, you know, as the lower inlets and lower manholes get put in, they're going to be very deep. And you're going to say, geez, Russ, that's like 11, 12 feet deep. Yes, it is 11, 12 foot deep. And the reason we did that is, once again, we step that down to de-energize the water as it comes down through that pipe system in the steep grade that's on Paul Lehman Drive. So we're even doing that, once again, trying to make this as resilient as possible and really not worsening any of the effects downstream.
great. Great. Oh, go ahead.
Where are I meant to ask you this earlier, I apologize, I forgot. Where are the guide rails? Are they
Oh, that's a
the
good.
entire length?
No, that's a good question. No, they are on both sides of the culvert underneath at the bottom. That's where all the guide rail is. Yes.
Is there any any more questions from the board? Tim or Bob?
No.
No, okay. Any
No.
questions from anyone in the room? Any audience? No? EJ, do you have any questions from anyone online?
No.
Okay.
So,
Do we have to, what do you
Yeah,
need from us?
I was gonna,
What do you need from us
I was gonna step
now?
in there.
we just completed part one of this discussion.
Yes.
Now it's on to
Here's the
part
fun part, part two. Yeah, it's, I think what we'd like is, and I'll also give you some background on the bidding process, how the board wants us to really proceed with this. You have really, I think you really kind of almost have, look like three options now, really. You could just do the lower culvert, you could do the entire thing, the entire base, and then you could do that, the alternate where we're only coming up to divert water away from the gully. That's kind of your three options. Something I will tell you right now is, in construction, there's a lot of this project, in fact, probably 95% of it, is using high-density polyethylene pipe. That's what we're using. That is in short supply right now. I have a friend of mine, he's a senior estimator out at Haynes and Kibble House, and he's being told now that it's 20 weeks to order pipe, 20 weeks to get pipe. So it's almost if you would look at awarding a bid in October, November, they're not going to get the pipe until March, April. And also the thought process is the pipe prices have gone up. He believes the price of the pipe will not go down as supply increases. So the change in pipe now and in the springtime will be simply, you'll just have more pipe available. But the price is going to be the same whether it is now for that pipe or in the springtime. You know, we even looked one of the alternates could be using like reinforced concrete pipe, which is a little more readily available. But the problem is now that pipe is historically a lot higher than the high-density polyethylene pipe. It's just a lot more expensive, a lot more labor to do. It's just historically a much higher-priced pipe. So that was an alternative we looked at, which if you wanted to go ahead and get the project done as quickly as possible, that's a possibility.
Is there a difference in the lifespan, significant difference between those
It's not,
materials?
there used to be a significant difference between the concrete and corrugated metal, and that was always a choice you made between the pricing. The high-density polyethylene, it's a PennDOT approved pipe. They use it. We've used it for a long time. There's really not much different life cycle as we look at that type of pipe. It's when you use corrugated metal instead of concrete, you're compromising life cycle for pricing. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are finding that out now. So that's the thing. And the other option we can do is, if we bid the project, we use in pen bid. We would use pen bid, which is not a cost to the township. There's no cost to the township for that. We can solicit bids. You certainly have an option to whether you accept or reject those bids. You have an option if you reject to rebid. The one disadvantage you always have with that, I always tell people this, is everybody knows what everybody else bid. So that's what there's no surprise. Everybody knows what each contractor bid. I've never done a job where there's been any significant savings when you rebid. I just haven't. It just usually the group tightens up as far as the bid pricing goes, but usually it's not a significant price. But like I said, if you decide to go ahead and bid, it's very easy to go out and bid right now, get some pricing, and then even from a time scheduling standpoint, just to make sure the bids are fair, we would not put in, if this was a 90-day typical job, let's say it's 90 days to build this out, whatever alternative you look at, we would actually build into the schedule, we would increase that schedule maybe out to 120 days, possibly 150 days, to consider the pipe supply issue, so contractors don't feel that they have to play with the bids to take that into consideration. So, all right.
Thank you.
It's the mic. When I get this mic in my hand, it's
So,
Do we need to make a decision tonight about something?
yes. Well,
Okay.
Well, you don't have to, but.
Which option we like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to consider. I mean, if you wanna, if you feel comfortable with these options and you're ready to pull one of them out to bid, then you should vote to authorize, the township engineer to put it out to bid on pen bid. But one of the other things that we need to discuss, we did receive a proposal from, Cedar Springs, which is, our equipment rental contractor. So, we did the equipment rental contract advertisement and selection, last year in October. Cedar Springs won the bid. The equipment rental is basically time, labor and equipment, for road work, curb work, drainage projects, and snow removal. So they were interested in doing a portion of this work under the existing contract, basically the lower portion of Paul Lehman, which would be the replacement of the culvert, and then essentially the first leg of the pipe before the road bends. So if you're looking at the screen right now, it's the top of the screen. So the culvert, and then to the right, that first straight section, basically before the road bends. And so they provided a quote, a proposal to do just that portion of the project, with the idea that if they did that, we would put the rest of it out to bid, and they would be out of it. There's some questions as to
Whether or not.
The
that's
solicitor
okay.
says not so fast.
yeah.
And the problem is, this is a
We
unified,
practice this.
this is a unified project, and the rules of municipal procurement are complex. And the purpose of the procurement rules is to make sure that there are bids designed to get the best possible price, and it's fairly done, and contractors have a reasonable opportunity to review the specs and to put their bids in, and they're open at the same time, and it's all fairly done. The problem we have here is that we have a single project, and if you were to consider the Cedar Springs construction proposal, which I can say the number, right, is
Yeah.
224 for their portion of the project, they assert that there would be a $40,000 savings over going through the bidding process, no prevailing wages, no Pennsylvania tax on materials, no bond, no engineering layout costs. Now, EJ and I were going through this today. We studied the entire, my best work on municipal procurement doesn't cover this proposal. We have a contract with Cedar Springs to do road work on an equipment rental basis. We get the materials ourselves, so it does save. And if this were a patch the road requirement, there'd be no problem with using Cedar Springs at the number that they give, because there's no need to bid. What I'm concerned about is that if this is looked at by a competitive bidder or anyone that's unhappy about it, they could say, was this done to evade the public bidding requirements? The answer is it's ambiguous, it's not clear.
Well, no, because we did the bid for the equipment rental. We did put that out to bid.
Right, we did, but we didn't put this part of the project.
Oh, I see.
See, it's a unified project when
Okay.
you start. The question is, can you carve out a piece and do it separately? Now, there's also a practical question, which I might ask Russ about. If you've got two contractors working on the same project and something goes wrong, you have this business as to whose fault it was. It's generally better to have one contractor supervising the entire project. But my main concern is the statutory provisions for competitive bidding are mandatory. Where a municipality evades the public bidding requirements, the public officials may be subject to criminal prosecution. Now, that never happens, but It's in the procurement rules.
That's comforting.
And if you try to cut corners by evading a bidding process, you can be in trouble. Now, my conclusion with EJ today was it's a matter of risk tolerance. There hasn't been a prosecution for public bidding requirements in memory. So it's here just to scare people like your good selves in terms of doing your jobs. But I think it's extremely unlikely that there'd be any problem and you'd save $40,000. The question really is, what is your risk tolerance for an accusation that you are evading part of the public bidding requirement on this project by using Cedar Springs, which is involved, is not, by carving it out? The answer is, I don't know. The law doesn't know in terms of, there's no clarity here. There's nothing in here that demonstrates what happens with this project. So I don't think you have to decide that tonight. If it's put out to bid, maybe you do. I don't know. But if you want to do it, you're taking a very slight risk. If you want to sleep at night without worrying about it, you'll say, no, we'll just bid it.
If we
Can I ask
put
a
it out
question?
to bid it and include it, can we take it out later?
That would be a big change.
Okay,
To carve out
Yeah.
that.
okay.
If it was,
The looks on
An
your
inlet,
faces
you
just
know,
said no.
we want to amend the contract to take one inlet out, then that's one thing, but this is
Yeah,
a quarter of the project.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, let me ask you a question, Russ.
Wait, hold on, hold on.
I think Bob is trying to comment too.
Bob is trying to comment. Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to ask Russ, they're saying we'll save 40,000 from some of the things we don't have to do. How do we know what they're charging us isn't escalated to at least a portion of that? Is there a way for you to look at what they're doing and run some numbers to say, yes, that's a competitive number?
Yeah, Bob, we did that. We looked at their numbers, and we felt initially, just taking a quick look at it, they were in line. I think what I had said earlier is there are items missing from this that we think if you just went with their bid, we would ask that additional items be included in that. And Bob, if the board wants us to provide those items, to Cedar Springs and say, can you please provide a more comprehensive bid, which includes these items? We get that back, then we look, and then we can tell you whether the pricing short of the items that they said are not included is reasonable or not. We can do that.
Yeah, I think
But
the material pricing they took from your quote,
Yeah.
I think, right?
The other thing I want to be careful of here, and just the other thing I wanted to say, is we should probably look at the grant agreement and see if the grant agreement says anything specific about bidding. I would look at that. Because they may have a comment about that in there.
I also happen to have the opinion that I like a unified
I-
bid from one contractor, like Bill was talking. I like having one company manage the whole thing. It's a big project. It'd be nice to have it uniform all the way down. The way it's being managed, the way it's being handled. So
I've worked on projects when I had my own business where you're dealing with lots and lots of different people, and it creates a mess
so if we're
sometimes in
putting
the
it out to
end
bid, I'd like to see it put out to bid the whole
altogether.
project, so.
That's my opinion too.
Me too.
Susan, you
I
too?
agree.
Bob
I
and
would
Tim,
agree
do
with
either
that
one
as
of you have a comment?
I would agree with the one bid as well.
Okay,
Yep, fine with it.
okay.
All right, so that eliminates one option. So then if you want to move forward now, then you would vote to authorize us to put this out to bid, and you need to pick one. The base bid or the slightly cheaper one.
Now, I will say, and Bill, you correct me if I'm wrong, is you could bid the total project with stipulations in the instructions of bidders and the specifications that you do reserve a right to diminish some of the project based upon the overall bidding. I mean, Bill, I've done that before.
I've seen it. You sometimes lose bidders though, because if they presume you're gonna
Cut it.
cut in
Right,
half
yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd
Could
like
we-
to know it right
Well,
ahead of time,
Or,
the scope of work.
yeah, or bid it as, you can bid a piece of it as an alternate too. You can put an alternate bid in. Sometimes the pricing doesn't work out, but you can separate it out. Your base could be up to the gully, and then you do an ad alternate, which could.
So then the contractor would give two numbers, is that it?
Yeah.
One for the larger, one for the.
So what if you have one contractor whose base is the least expensive, but then their alternate is more expensive than someone else's?
It happens, you have to make it, that's part of the.
So,
choice.
so you still have
Yeah,
to
you
do
have to
all
make the choice.
one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And we'd be finalizing the scope by the time the bids come in, I hope.
Yeah.
So one of the, I forgot to mention this earlier, one of the differences, and I think Susan was the one who asked this question, between the two options, the lesser or the less expensive option utilize the existing pipe for that first stretch coming off the
Correct.
Forge Mountain. It's possible that that pipe is in pretty good shape, that it could be salvaged and utilized. One of the unknowns here is we're not sure exactly where it makes the bend.
Yeah, that's a tricky part.
And that's where it's gonna need to be cut off. But it's possible that that pipe's in good enough shape that we can use it, so, you know, that may make the alternate option a little more attractive. The less expensive option.
But I like Russ's idea of,
Placing an alternate bid on
yeah, you know, having it separated.
Yeah.
So once they open it up, if they look at this and say, why are we replacing this? If it's in decent condition. Am I missing
More
something?
than I do.
Is that
that what you were
an-
saying?
Is that an assessment that the contractor would be able to make once they look at it, or?
Or would
like-
that be you?
Or is that gonna be
I would,
too
I
much
would
of an
want,
expectation?
Yeah,
I
I
would
would-
want them to make that.
Yeah, I want to,
Or, well, yeah.
I'd like to give that process a little bit of thought. So the purpose would be that you could have a bid, whether it be one total bid or two bids, one with a base and one with an ad alternate. And then at the time you go to construct, you would look at it and say, you know what, that pipe's not in bad shape, let's leave it. Do you guys mind doing a change order as a deduct, and we're not gonna do the project? I'd like to think about that. I don't know if I'd like to think about it, if that's like an option, if that's what you're gonna do, if you wanna do that or not. So you would.
Well, that's what I got
Yeah,
the
I'm
impression
not-
that's what you were thinking.
No, the reason you do the alternate bid is, if you do the alternate bid, and I'm gonna just use this as an example, right? Here's the way I think about using the alternate bid. You have the one bid that goes up to the gully, and let's just say, we're talking about a total project, just for round numbers, 1.2 million, all right? So you bid the project, and let's just say, for sake of argument, for whatever reason, that the project up to the gully comes in at $800,000, and the ad alternate comes in at $200,000. And you look at that and you say, well, geez, that's great, because we were looking at a $1,115,000 job. Now it's a $1 million job. It gives you it gives you a thought to say, I'd like to do it or not.
Okay.
All right? Or you would look at the first bid and say, geez, we thought that was gonna be 900 and some thousand, it's only $800,000. Let's just do that, because that keeps the amount of difference between what the grant is and what we would have to provide less. So it gives you, by doing that base, it just gives you a couple of base bid and alternate bid. It gives you a couple of options to look at. That's what it does. And then based upon our valuation of the bid, looking at the cost, you then can make, we can give you a recommendation as to what we think we have. The other option is, one comes in at the one alternate to the ditch comes in at 1.5 million, and the other one comes in at 500,000. Then you're like, well, geez, we're definitely not. We want to just hold it to the one part.
So your recommendation is we put both options out for bid and then assess them?
I think it's a good idea. And you know, the other
Good.
piece, yeah, and I think the other piece of that even is, if we look at future grant programs and grant plans become available, we'll have a lot better handle on what the overall total cost of the price of the project is. And like I said, you know, right now, it's engineers and architects are in cost estimating, you know what, between, and seeing bids come in and what we're estimating. It's just, it's a very difficult atmosphere to predict what costs are gonna come in at.
That sounds
So
good.
do you think you estimated high? Did you put a
Everybody,
contingency in here?
Here's the scientific method we used, all right? I said, take our last bid, look at all of our pricing, and then add 25%.
Okay.
But that doesn't, but once again, that, I don't
Yeah.
know what that's going to do. I have no idea, you know, when I look at the pricing, it could be 50% higher,
So-
it could
so
be
with
10% lower.
With the variability in pricing on materials and shipment time and whatever, I think I like your idea. I think we should move forward with putting out both options to bid, and see what comes in.
And then you'll have a lot more data to make decisions as to how you want to kind of proceed with this, and even, like I said, in future grants.
Yep.
Tim or Bob, do you have any more comments or questions?
I'm
No.
comfortable with that idea of putting both out to bid and having more data to make a decision.
Same,
Bob?
agreed.
Okay. Do we have any comments from anyone in the room? Do we have any public comment?
Nope.
That's very helpful.
How on earth do I word this? I would like to make a motion that we put the bid out for the Paul Lemon Drive Stormwater Management Project on Penn Bid.
With both.
Yeah.
With the base bid option and the.
Alternate bid.
And the alternate.
With the
Yeah.
base bid option and the alternate
Yep.
option.
We got that.
Yep.
All right.
Good. I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I want to hear it again. No.
Thanks, Susan.
Play it back for me. Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, there we go.
We'll get to work.
Thank
Way to pull it together, Martha.
If it's okay with the board, I would excuse Russ for the rest of the meeting as there's something on the
you. Sure.
agenda for-
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, I don't mind staying, but I don't mind going.
Thanks, Russ.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Moving on, discussion, the Regional Planning Committee Comprehensive Plan Update.
So,
Mark.
So we were talking about maybe having me go to commissions and talk about how it differs from the old comprehensive plan. The Regional Planning Committee is moving forward with pushing towards regional adoption of the plan. 4 of the 6 municipalities are taking it as it is and adopting it as their municipal comprehensive plan. Phoenixville Borough typically does its own thing because they have a lot of additional items that they always put into it, but, so it is fairly comprehensive as it is, and it would be an option for Schuylkill to take it as it is and adopt it as such. It adds in a lot of references to like new technologies like EV cars and solar panel discussions for having. It's recommended we have like an ordinance in our township for that. And so there's the general recommendations for the region, and it delves down into each municipality's specific issues and a bit of local flair. So you'll have like the historic districts from Schuylkill Township are mentioned outright, and the ones from East Pikeland are mentioned in another section. So I think I think, are we looking for action tonight on adopting the adoption letter yet, or is that a separate thing where?
So I think, we have to have a hearing, we have to schedule a
Oh, right.
public hearing
I keep
for
forgetting.
adoption, which should
Thank
be
you.
at next month's board meeting.
Okay.
And I think Ed would probably attend, or someone from his planning team.
Yeah.
So that would be the next
Yeah,
step.
so we do need an update. It has been a long time. We're missing a lot of the references to new technology and emerging technologies, especially with regards to the environmental plans. It would save us a lot of money to adopt it as it is. That is the very large upside to it. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go through more major modifications through our engineer. We'll have to pass it through all of our commissions and everything like that. If between now and next month, if we can decide whether or not we want to take this on as it currently stands, rather than modify it with either minor or major modifications, it would be able to be wrapped into that adoption hearing, I think, and save us additional money on court reporting and other things.
Right.
So I think the discussion here is whether or not we want to entertain that option to adopt it as it is as our municipal plan with any modifications to be suggested, as an attachment like we did in 2005, which was an attachment to the 1993 plan.
Right.
Yeah. So
I thought that we were going to get some feedback from the
yeah, and
committees if they had any comment, so that we could make those additions if we wanted to.
yeah, and what I did was in what time I've had available, I did a cursory comparison of what's in there compared to the 2005 plan, and kind of took stock of where it's changed, and it mostly changed in the environmental plans and energy planning. We are welcome to take it to our commissions or adopt as is, and then have commissions suggest things for like an appendix that can be added at any time, rather than like skipping the opportunity to adopt this as our comprehensive plan and spend tons of money to try and do it on our own after all this is done.
But could I ask, can we send it through our commissions without any cost and just?
We could, yeah.
Only because I feel like I would rather, if they have big problems with it, it might be good to know now.
Yeah. And
as
it has
opposed
been
to-
through all of them. They
Okay.
have already put in, all of our commissions provided input throughout the process, and we had members of the commissions attend all of the many of the public hearings that happened throughout the adoption process, both for the 2 years ago, which was with only 5 municipalities, and again with the 6 municipalities, we had more participation from our commissions in those. Like Kurt was there from the Planning Commission; he had input for that kind of development plans, making sure that our map was updated in the comp plan for the region, and ensuring that the districts we wanted were called out.
What would be the downside to sending it? Because I feel like it's nice to.
There's not a downside to
Okay.
sending it again,
Yeah.
other than delaying the adoption further, which is fine. We can delay it more, but we do have to decide on whether to adopt it at a hearing for the region. So we can put in the adoption for the region. We can talk about it again.
And we have to do that next month?
I think
It's been requested that we get that done so that the region can adopt and move on, because this has been the second comprehensive plan process in 2 years on a process that's normally done every 10. So I think the opinion of the region is that they would like to get it moving, because it didn't change much at all from the 2021 that we already approved.
Yeah, the decision whether or not, or
Or
the
2019
decision
one.
to adopt it as the regional comprehensive plan is, I don't wanna say it's a no-brainer, but it's, I mean, we kinda, this was vetted pretty thoroughly 2 years ago. The only change since then is the addition of West Pikeland Township.
Yeah, and
So it's kind of an easy next step. The real question is whether or not to adopt it as our own. That's a
yeah,
whole-
so that's the
a whole
bigger.
And is that what we have to decide now, or we don't have to decide
No,
now?
this is just a discussion. We're not voting on anything.
But I guess before we adopt it as our township's plan, I feel like that might be something we want to send to the commissions, right?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill, what's
And-
the import of having this be our township's plan? Like, does this mean developers are gonna come in and say, oh, your plan says this, and so we wanna put this here? Like, how is this gonna?
My history in evaluating comp plans is, I don't pay much attention to them, maybe I should. They are not legally binding. They are advisory documents, planning documents, but they don't have the same force of law as does zoning or SALDO. And of course, the developers will take them and shove them down your throat, but at the end of the day, they don't, I don't want to say they don't mean anything. They are useful for what they're designed to be, which is to help local government figure out where things will be in 5 years and 10 years and all that. And it's a useful planning tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it was good for getting grants, so that's why I thought we should have it.
So-
Yeah, having
but-
references to things
Okay.
like solar panels in there it helps you with the grant process for getting township solar panels, maybe.
Okay.
And I don't
We
mean to-
we were talking about that in the
I
region.
don't mean to denigrate it, I just have never focused on it as being
Yeah.
important in
It's-
terms of legal advice, because it's just out there as a recommendation document.
It's not a
Okay.
big part of the SALDO process or anything like that, so it's not gonna affect like the actual development. It is like Phil said, it is a planning document. And it seems redundant to me to send it back through the commissions, which have already seen it twice in the process, because it was mandated that it go through those commissions twice now, after they've already provided their input twice.
Okay, well then I'm fine with that,
And,
yeah.
I think it's just a redundant process at this point, and it's kind of,
Well, they
whether,
weighed in,
whether or not we
yeah.
want to just, move forward with it. It's like, I think at this point, if the board itself is happy with the comp plan, it has been exhaustively reviewed. And, I am personally happy with it, but I'm happy to say, let's put more time on it, and, the rest of the board can go through it and make sure that everything they want is in there, and we can send it to the commissions if we want. But to me, it seems unnecessary to do so. Not even just because it's a lot more time on the process, but I think a lot of these redundant actions we take are just unnecessary. So.
Okay, yeah,
And-
I'm fine
and-
not sending it through the commissions, as long as it doesn't
You
have
know,
a
I
legal
forgot that
impact.
they did do that
Yeah.
2 years ago,
And
so,
and
yeah.
it's like, I know you all haven't been like at every single meeting for that, but I remember having a schedule with Ed to make sure he got to every single commission and doing it multiple times.
Good times.
Yeah, it was fun coordinating.
Bob or Tim, do you have any comments on this?
But yeah.
No, I'm okay with going through with it. I think the commissions have had their chance to weigh in.
Yeah, and this doesn't preclude the commissions from providing further recommendations, and we can add them as an appendix or something.
Yeah.
So like, it's not cutting off the process if the commissions feel slighted and they want to be involved more and get
No,
more
but you were
things
right,
on
they-
there. But I think at this
Yeah.
point, I
Okay.
think we're good to go in terms of
Do we need to vote
shortening
on
that
anything
process a little
tonight?
bit.
No?
No,
Okay.
But it's picking the adoption letter for the hearing, basically, like.
Yeah, it'll be a resolution.
It'll be,
And we'll have the hearing at the September meeting, which I think is the first?
Yeah,
It's the first Wednesday in September.
yeah.
So we'll have the hearing.
it's either the first or
and
the
then-
second.
And then you'll have a resolution to vote, and the resolution if you remember from 2 years ago, they provided it to us with the two different options. You either are adopting it as the regional comprehensive plan or adopting it as the regional comprehensive plan and your
And the
municipal
local, yeah.
comprehensive plan.
Yeah, and yeah, traditionally, 4 out of the 6 municipalities have adopted as their own. We haven't done that yet, but I think that's, I'm not sure I would speculate on why, but we just haven't done it until now.
We just haven't
It's-
But we
done it.
probably should,
But
right?
we probably should. That,
Okay.
there was a big question at the last regional meeting, why we weren't doing it, and I thought about it, and I thought I'd come back here and suggest maybe we should. Because
Okay.
it is only a
That's fine.
planning document, it doesn't affect
We're not
like our
making any
land
decisions,
development
so.
projects, it's just a guidance document for the board and our staff to encourage, new ordinance creation and like, zoning changes perhaps, if they're necessary, or to document where we're at and where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Good, sounds good.
And do we have any questions from anybody? I know.
Do we have any public comment, questions on that?
Nope.
Anyone here? Nope.
All right.
Okay. Moving on, consideration of approval of an additional $67,500 in due diligence expenditures related to the conditional offer for the property known as Parcel O. Such expenditures will be dispersed from the Township Open Space Funds and are not to exceed $82,500, inclusive of the $15,000 approved by motion on July 7th, 2021. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from anyone in the room? EJ, do we have any public?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Tim,
Yep, aye.
Oh, okay, good.
wasn't
Thank
sure if
you.
lost you or not. Thanks.
All right, new business. Discussion, new sunshine law provisions regarding agendas under Act 75 of 2021.
Yeah, I'll jump in here if I can. It's Act 65. It basically requires more staff attention to agenda planning. There's a cutoff 24 hours before each meeting for every committee in the township. You must post your agenda online and at the building, and agendas must be available for the public when they attend. There are 3 exceptions to the agenda rule. If there's an emergency, you've got to identify the emergency, clear and present danger to life or property. In those cases, you can vote. If a matter is brought to your attention less than 24 hours before the meeting, if it's de minimis and doesn't require the spending of funds and does not require a contract or agreement, you can act. And finally, if a resident comes in with a matter, if it's de minimis again and doesn't require the spending of money, that can be done. You're allowed to discuss matters that are not on the agenda. You're just not allowed to take official action.
And that includes committees and commissions.
Yeah, everybody. And I understand the staff is up to date on this, and they're ready to go with their enhanced preparation requirements. So that's where we are.
Yeah, so we pretty much already followed this law for the Board of Supervisors meetings, but the committees and commissions will be a little bit more work in getting their agendas from them in enough time so that we can post it. We'll post it on the township website. We also have a display, weather-resistant display case that's going to be mounted on the outside of the township building, because there's a requirement that the agendas be posted at the physical location as well. And then
On the door, outside.
yeah, and if any changes are made to the agenda during the meeting by a vote of the body, the agenda has to be updated and posted. Is it either the next day or within 48 hours? I don't remember exactly what the new law says. And I think there's supposed to be an explanation of why you're voting on something that wasn't on the original agenda. And it has to be clearly stated in the minutes, so there's record. So it's just
So
busy work.
I do know that some of the committees and commissions had questions regarding the 24 hours, because they were like, oh, if I hand it in 24 hours before our meeting,
We'll need to.
that should be good enough, right? So I think we may need to make it really clear
We need
to our committees and our commissions that if your meeting is on Wednesday, the office needs to have it.
A week in advance, like.
Well, that's not gonna
No,
happen.
yeah, and I don't.
That's not,
I'll talk to Madeline about it and we'll
Okay.
come to an agreement. I mean, at
Yeah,
a
I'm sure.
minimum 48 hours in advance, but
It's
maybe 72, maybe 3 days in advance. I mean,
you're gonna
it's
get some
simple.
pushback on that, but
Well, then,
I'm just,
yeah, I mean,
I'm,
we can put their agendas together for them, but
Yeah.
then they're limited to only discussing what we put, they can make them really short.
I'm just, this was discussed at a couple of meetings this past month, and there was some pushback, so.
Well, it should not be directed at the board or
I-
the township staff. 'Cause
I
this
told
was a-
them this was.
a new state law. That
Yes,
Yeah.
this is a new law, this has nothing to do, and they said, well, what happens if there's something that we need to vote on? And I said, it'll have to wait.
Well, they can add it, they just have to explain it thoroughly at the meeting, and then they have to add it in the.
They have to vote to add it to the
Yes.
agenda and then vote on the items.
Yeah, we.
Yeah.
Now you're really getting complicated. We're
I-
talking about our committees and our commissions.
I think we already had to exercise that at our last regional meeting where we had to vote to add an item because it also applies to regional committees, or regional groups.
Mhm.
It does not take effect until the end of the month. So you were.
No, but it's good to get
We
it,
got into practice, it's
Yeah.
fine, it's fine.
okay.
It's not that bad, except for the people who are taking notes.
Do we have any public
Uh,
comments or questions?
No.
No?
No.
All right. Discussion, the new small cell bill HB 1621 that regulates the deployment of small cell wireless facilities in the public right-of-ways. Should,
Let's
okay,
discuss it.
should we discuss it first, or do you
Yeah,
want,
let's
okay.
discuss it first.
Okay. So, EJ, Bill,
I would recommend that the board approve the proposal from Cohen Law Group, to update our wireless, facilities.
This is
Ordinance.
This is a specialty area, very refined thinking goes into this. These are those small boxes that you can wake up in the morning and there'll be a pole in front
A
of your
short
house.
pole, yeah.
So it has been a free-for-all in regulations, the law has changed, and the idea is to get the maximum protection for our residents as possible, based upon the language of the new act. So the
Yeah.
Cohen Group is already has done work for us on in the TV, the cable TV area, and they're experts, and their fees seem reasonable for this project, $4,800 plus expenses.
Yeah. And this is an issue that PSAT's brought up a couple years ago as an emerging
Mhm.
issue, and
Yeah.
now it's coming to fruition, and we're just gonna head it off.
The difficult part of this is, we discussed this maybe about 2 years ago, this was a workshop
Yeah.
item for maybe several meetings, but there was so much uncertainty in the law at that time, and the FCC was issuing new orders, and then the PUC was getting involved, and it was very unclear what role and what authority municipalities had to regulate these things.
Yeah.
Well, that was just finalized about a month and a half ago, but the rule basically said that if municipalities wanted to take advantage of it, you had to amend your ordinance by like the end of October. So we have 3 months basically to, and this is part of the zoning ordinance, so this requires an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Cohen Law Group they're more than equipped to, I mean, basically, we'll have an ordinance, a proposed, draft ordinance at next month's meeting for advertisement, and then we'll have it ready
Adoption
for
in
adoption in
October.
October, yeah.
All right,
Makes
sense.
thanks.
Okay, so consideration of approval of the July 21st, 2021 Cohen Law Group proposal, for wireless facilities management services for a contracted cost of $4,800 plus expenses. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Yes, just a quick question. Is this money budgeted in our budget, EJ?
We do have a special legal line item for ordinance work. I can actually give you that number if you just bear with me, because I have the year-to-date, and I think we're well under budget.
The second question, when it says plus expenses, is that not to exceed a certain amount of money, or do you know how much the expenses would be?
The
Directionally?
expenses would be if we asked them to basically come and attend a meeting in person, because they're based out of Pittsburgh, but there's really no need for them to do this. But if the board really wanted them to, then they could, but that would be in addition to the 4,800.
So, Tim, we've had them do work for us before on, like EJ said, our agreements, our Comcast and our Verizon agreements, and they've never gone over whatever the amount the board
Got it.
approved.
Got it.
So
Thanks.
to that line item, Tim, we budgeted 6,000. To date, we've spent a little over 700. So
Great.
Thank you for the input.
you got it.
No further questions.
Do we have any questions from anyone in here? Do we have any questions from anyone online?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Consideration of the appointment of Mr. Randall Wagner and Mr. John Jarbo, Township residents, to unexpired terms as members of the Schuylkill Township Historical Commission, said terms to expire December 31st, 2021, and December 31st, 2023, respectively. I will make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? EJ, do we have, no? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Who seconded that motion?
Take your pick. It was either Mark or Bob.
It was,
Consideration of approval of the indemnification agreement with the Valley Forge Volunteer Fire Company regarding the township-insured SWAT truck being stored at the West End Fire Company Number 3 station, by which the Valley Forge Volunteer Fire Company agrees to indemnify Schuylkill Township while the truck is so stored. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
second that.
Any comments or questions? EJ, do you have any comments on this? Nope.
No, unless anyone has any questions.
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Any comments or questions from you guys? No? Any comments or questions from the public?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Can I request that we table the next agenda item? There's information that I was expecting to have by today that I don't.
Okay, so EJ has requested that we table our next item that is on our agenda about the beast, so I'm going to move on. Consideration of approval to remove the island at the intersection of Kennelcon Drive and Clayona Avenue to allow an unrestricted turning radius for first responder vehicles. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
What was the thing that sparked that again? I'm,
Well, it was originally put on our radar because a resident complained that there was emergency access issues. There was a fire, and the vehicles had a hard time making the turn because of the island. We don't know what incident that was. It could have been the borough. This road, this intersection's right on the border of Teenagsville Borough, and it's kind of a one way in, one way out, so the borough residents have to come in this way, so it's possible with someone in the borough. But in looking at it further, we realize that there's
Yeah.
significant storm
Alright.
stormwater issues there that removing this will help with. So
Okay.
it's
Thanks.
probably more so for that than.
I just need the reminder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have any public comment, EJ?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Resolutions and ordinances. Consideration of adoption of the ordinance number 2021-03, amending Chapter 27, the Historical Commission 27-3.A, in parentheses 3, membership terms to the Township Code. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Consideration of adoption of resolution number 2021-12, establishing a transportation impact fee advisory committee. I thought we already did this.
We did.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second that, yeah.
Yeah, please do.
All right.
I thought we already did this.
So,
I know why.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an email from Chad Dixon in the Dropbox, who's the traffic engineer from McMahon Associates, explaining the predicament that we're in with the Act 209 study,
Yeah.
which is the transportation impact fee study. Started in July of last year when the board adopted this exact resolution that's before you now. Act 209 provides for an 18-month window within which the study needs to be completed. A large component of this study is traffic counts and traffic studies. They were not able to do that at all last year because of COVID, and PennDOT had actually issued guidance that, you know, any traffic studies that were conducted under those conditions were invalid and could potentially be challenged. So
Yeah.
we were kind of handcuffed. They were scheduled to hopefully start the traffic studies in September. But in addition to the traffic studies, there's then a roadway sufficiency analysis that they have to put together. We would have to have a public hearing with the TFAC,
Yep.
and then board hearing for adoption. Then a capital improvements plan, which lays out all the improvements that the fees would be used for and how much they cost. Public hearing for adoption on that. Then an ordinance establishing the impact fee, public hearing, advertisement, adoption for that. And we need all that done by the end of the year. So Chad explained at the hearing a couple weeks ago on the land use assumptions report, which was part one of this process, that if we didn't finish by the end of the year, we could restart the 18-month clock by adopting a new resolution. In thinking about it more and talking about it more, one of the things this resolution allows us to do is to assess an interim fee of $1,000 per peak hour trip on any new subdivision or land development applications that we get while the study's being conducted. If the 18 months were to expire and we'd have to renew this, we would have to refund any of those interim fees that we collected. To date, we haven't had any applications or collected any interim fees, so we're being proactive and getting out of it is pretty much all this is. So we don't have to redo the work that's already been done, but this will basically start a new 18-month clock, and that way we're not at risk of losing any potential interim fees that we would have collected between now and the end of the year.
And PennDOT's okay with this according to the grant?
There's no grant for this.
Yeah, this is just the.
Oh, that's
this is
right.
just our- yeah.
That's right. We didn't get a
We're just
grant for
looking to
this. I
assess
forgot
fees
about
for
that.
New development.
Yeah,
But
I
it,
forgot that.
But I did ask Chad about we got a proposal from McMahon, which the board reviewed and approved for a specific cost for this project, and he said there wouldn't be any changes or additions as a result of extending this. Because the amount of work is still the same, it's just
Yeah.
being spread over a longer period of time.
Okay.
Alright.
Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Consideration of advertisement of ordinance number 2021-04, amending Chapter 248, peddling and soliciting of the Township Code. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Bill, take it
All right,
over.
Well, in general terms, the township, Township received a letter from a law firm in Texas specializing in First Amendment issues, which are free speech issues. And they have a history of targeting townships where they find a restriction on peddling and solicitation door-to-door, which they find to be violative of certain standards that exist. Our ordinance had limited the door-to-door solicitation to 5 o'clock on weekdays. In recent years, a number of cases in the federal courts have indicated that that's unduly restrictive. So our courts have indicated that it's okay for people to knock on your doors up to and including 9 p.m. Don't ask me why they've ruled that way. I have a binder and a pile of law cases that I have reviewed, and I'm satisfied that that's the condition of the law at the present time. In addition, and we were notified of this in our 194-page letter, where the claimant is successful in these First Amendment cases, they're entitled to attorney's fees relative to the work that was done in supporting extending these time limitations. And this particular company had won against a unhappy municipality in, I think it was Colorado, and their legal fee bill was $530,000. That would be in addition to the cost that the municipality had on its own. So we felt, generally speaking, that our hands were in some senses tied. And incidentally, a lot of local communities, Radnor included, have 5 o'clock as their time, so this is not something that we were out of line with. I don't know why they selected us for an example, but they did. So we are proposing to modify our time for peddling they shall not engage in peddling on Sunday or on any other day of the week before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m. prevailing time, or 30 minutes after sundown, whichever is earlier. And these times were selected after a careful review of the cases. We think this will stand constitutional muster. For example, today sundown was 8:12, so it would have been 8:42 p.m. as the shut-off. There's another option to put in the word dusk, but dusk is very confusing. Its definition is the darker part of twilight, whatever that means. So we didn't want to leave the door open to any confusion about what our ordinance says. So that's the proposal, and that's where we are, thanks to our court system.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, well done. So there's been a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the board?
No.
Any public comment here? Please come up to the microphone and your name, address, and speak as clearly.
John Raz, 34 Meadowbrook Lane. Question on the peddling permit. Isn't there a permit fee for such things that happen in this township?
Yes.
Okay, so is that part of the ordinance also?
The fee, well, the ordinance references the existence of the fee, but the fee is set by fee schedule, which we do by resolution every year.
Okay, so
Currently,
there
it's
has to be a
20.
fee associated with any peddling in this township.
That's correct. And you can, if someone comes to your door, you can ask them for a copy of the
And then you
permit.
can call the police.
If they don't have it.
And the police do have those permits on file.
Okay.
And if you put up a no soliciting or no peddling sign at your house, and the new ordinance, or the ordinance amendment is gonna clearly state that, they have to abide by that, and if they don't, they're in violation of the ordinance, they can be fined, and they can have their permit revoked.
We've been suggesting that people, if they remember when the door, get a door knock at 5 and 9, that it would be good to videotape this exchange, because I can't name names, I don't want to say anything improper about anybody, but it's possible that some people will be persistent in trying to sell certain services. So if you ask them to leave and they don't, and if you get it on videotape, all the better, then action might be taken. But It's just the way the world these days.
But does the no solicitation sign on your personal property, does that extend to a private lane?
Well, to dig in a little bit, it's a question that's been raised in these cases about whether the private property rights preclude them from walking onto your property. And the Supreme Court had said that this is such an important form of communication, these are older cases before the internet, that walking on property was an accepted form of communication. Now that's changing. There was a case recently, about 3 months ago, where the Supreme Court said that the former rule allowing union workers to solicit on the plants of business owners, as they've been doing for decades, was no longer proper. So the union cannot go onto the factory floor and solicit. And there was some respect for the private property of the business owner. So it may be changing. We'll keep an eye on it. If any cases come down changing the hours, we'll look into it and make appropriate modifications.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comment here in the room? Nope. Is there any public comment online?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 And thank you, Bill, for all of that hard work and reading that 195-page letter from them. So we have nothing under subdivision and land development. Do we have any? Yeah.
I just want to make everyone aware that we did receive the resubmission for the 140 Dawson Drive commercial development, Techman Motors.
Okay.
They had to go through the zoning hearing board. They've resubmitted. They'll be on the planning commission agenda for August 18th. They'll likely be on the planning commission in September again. It's probably going to be too much, but just wanted to make everyone aware of that. That's what just came in on Monday of this week.
Okay. Do we have any other additional business? We will be having a workshop meeting this month, which is September 19th? August. Why am I rushing?
Don't wish it away.
I was saying earlier before, and now I'm saying later. It'll be August 19th. Okay. At 7 o'clock here at the Township Building. All right. I do have announcements. And Madeline, thank you very much for typing these up for me. The Board of Supervisors continues to strongly recommend that residents refer to and follow the CDC guidance and recommendations regarding ongoing COVID-19 and COVID variants, safety measures, and procedures. Township residents looking for testing and/or vaccine information should visit the Chester County Coronavirus-COVID-19 site. All township boards, committees, commissions have resumed in-person meetings at the Township Hall. At this time, masks are not required but are strongly encouraged for anyone who is not vaccinated. At this time, the Schuylkill Township administrative offices are open with limited access to the public. Building permit applications may continue to be submitted electronically via the U.S. mail or drop off to the delivery bin at the Township Building. The Township's Historical Commission and Open Space Commission have openings for members. Township residents interested in serving should send a letter and a resume to the Township Manager at twpmgr@schuylkilltwp.org. Saturday, August 7th, that's this Saturday, the Schuylkill Township Environmental Advisory Council will be doing a cleanup event at Valley Park Municipal Park on Valley Park Road from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. All are welcome. For information, please visit the EAC's Facebook page. The Daughters of the American Revolution invite the public to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier with a 3-day event at the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge on August 13th, 14th, and 15th. Information about the event is available on the Township's website. Saturday, September 18th, 2021, the Friends of the Medal of Honor Grove will be holding their annual fall community cleanup from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. For more information or to volunteer, please visit www.friendsmohgrove.com or their Facebook page. Monday, September 27th, 2021, the Schuylkill Township Police Association is hosting their second annual community blood drive at the Calvary Bible Church from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's right across the street here. More information will be available on the township's website closer to the date. Schuylkill Township will soon be taking applications for a chief of police and administrative office positions. Information will be available on the township website in the near future. Does anyone have any other announcements?
No.
Are there any fire? Are there any fire company? Yep. Okay.
Just a small correction, the Friends of Medal of Honor Grove website is a .org. So it's friendsmohgrove.org.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Didn't see that. All right. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? Oh, public comment. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I did that at the beginning of the
It's been so long.
Okay. I did that. Do we have any public comment? We don't have any public comment. You were standing up. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you.